Nobody has the red and black. They all have the black. This is multi-mag.
I'm ready. Good evening. I am Ralph Berkeley. As moderator this evening, I would like to welcome each candidate for the Beloit City Council and members of the audience to the 2018 Candidates Forum. Tonight's forum is sponsored by the Beloit League of Women Voters, the NAACP Beloit Chapter, and the Greater Beloit Area Chamber of Commerce. The forum this evening will be taped and will be shown before the April 3rd Election Day on Beloit Access TV. For the first part of the forum, questions were prepared by the sponsoring organizations. As the moderator, I will direct the same question to the incumbent candidates and another question to the challenger candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. A timekeeper will keep us on schedule. For the second part of the forum, prepared questions will be read by the moderator and directed to all of the candidates. Each person will have 2 minutes to respond. If other candidates want to answer the same question, that person will have 30 seconds to respond. For the third part of the forum, prepared questions will be asked of an individual candidate. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. If other candidates want to respond to the same question, that person will have 30 seconds to respond. For the fourth part of the forum, members of the audience are invited to write questions on the 3x5 cards provided. Audience questions should not be directed to one specific candidate, nor should the question be of a personal nature. The moderator will select a name at random to answer the question. A member of the sponsoring organizations will collect the cards. Finally, at the end of the audience question and answer period, each candidate will be given the opportunity to give closing remarks. Closing remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. At this time, I will introduce each candidate for City Council. To my immediate right, Ms. Beth Jacobson, Mr. Mark Croyshel, Mr. Paul Martin, and Mr. Kevin Levy. Candidates, could you make sure your microphones are turned on? Just the little button. Thank you. Mark, when you are done texting, you can...
No, I'm turning my phone off. I thought that would be a good idea.
It might be.
Where's Virginia?
We don't want you getting any help from anyone to answer questions.
Thought I would turn that silly phone off.
I have been informed that Mr. Duncan and Ms. Richards are not able to attend the forum this evening.
Oh.
We will now begin part one of the City Council Forum.
Beavers, yeah.
This question is for our incumbents. Please summarize what you have specifically accomplished during your tenure as a city councilor. Mr. Levy?
Thank you. First, I would like to thank all the organizations for putting this on this evening and thank each and every one of you for coming out to hear what we have to say. I think this is very important as you prepare yourselves to vote on April 3rd. One of the things that, several things I've done since I've been down here the last term is kind of directed or pushed the city manager to do some hiring as it resorts to our community, that our workforce in the city is reflective of what our population looks like here in Beloit, and come up with plans on how we can do that. And over the last few months, we have seen improvement in that area, and we continue to see improvement, but we have a ways to go, but we at least working in that direction. Also, we're putting in place customer service, making sure that when citizens call the city, that they're receiving friendly advice, help. So that's another area that we're looking at. And the other piece is the budget control, making sure that when the city manager brings a budget to the council, it's a balanced budget, and then we have what we need to run the city, and making sure that when we look at that we're being fair across all departments. So I'm making sure that we're doing that as well. And then also pushing job development as it relates to businesses that may come to Beloit. We often hear that we want to make sure that our citizens are the ones that receive the jobs here. So I'm I was pushing and will continue to push that we make sure we have some type of job development for our citizens and our residents here. So as new businesses come here, that our residents could be qualified and meet the skills to get those jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. Ms. Jacobson.
Thank you. I've only been on council since September, so I'm an incumbent, but I have less time to have as many accomplishments. But I want to thank the current council for having faith in me to join them for this short amount of time. And I'm here today to hopefully earn votes to stay on council. Since September of 17, when I was appointed, I've been to, I participated in the budget hearing, which, as you know, is one of the most important jobs that we do. And I think that that went well, and I asked good questions and was able to participate. And also, I can say one thing that I suggested at a council meeting was that we have new hires introduced to not just the council, but also to the public through this public forum when they're hired, so that we can meet them and so can the city. So that's something that I think we have enjoyed for the last couple months. And hopefully I look forward to more accomplishments in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Preishel.
Well, thank you, and thanks for coming, folks. Like Kevin said, we started 2 years ago pushing for an improved customer service attitude, and we developed a new strategic plan for the city with the city manager, and we've really pushed for an improvement in our overall hiring, programs. So we refined those and got a more professional thing. But really, back in 2002, I served on a communications committee to look at city communications, and I think we've come a long way in the last 2 years. In that committee that I chaired, we recommended hiring a communications specialist, and we finally did that this year. It took 15 years. Things take time. But we did accomplish that, and I think it's going to prove dividends all the way around. Our Facebook use, our social media use, all across the board has improved greatly. Last spring, I happened to mention during the committee assignments that we had no representation on the golf committee. And that night, the chairman of the golf committee asked for representation, and they all looked at me and said, "Mark, can you make it 7 o'clock in the Wednesday morning meeting?" And I did. And we didn't know then what was going to happen with the golf course, but having a good understanding of what was going on over there and stuff was quite helpful, and we're moving in the right area, the right direction with that. I'm really looking forward to seeing some good results this year on the golf course committee. But as far as that's my, personal involvement, I look forward to doing that for another 2 years and pushing to improve our customer service and our community relations. Thank you.
Thank you. And this question goes to our only challenger in attendance this evening, Mr. Martin. What would you specifically hope to accomplish during your tenure as a new city councilor?
First of all, I'd like to thank League of Women Voters, NAACP, and Chamber of Commerce for the invite, all the citizens who are here in attendance and those watching. I really appreciate the offer you extended to me. What I would like to accomplish is to basically maintain the standard of safety and security amongst our emergency services, meeting the staffing needs that they require. I'd also like to work on building relationships with the city, school, neighborhoods, and the businesses to work on building a qualified workforce for the future through the high school and Black Hawk Tech colleges. I'd like to also be able to reach out to the citizens with quarterly town hall meetings to keep citizens informed on how the different departments operate and function. I'd also like to work within the neighborhoods, keeping them informed on all the different programs that the city offers, and working with the city manager and the other councilors and extending some type of financial assistance to our small businesses that are here in the city of Beloit to help them grow because we do know once they start growing, they tend to hire more so than the bigger businesses that come in. So those are some of the things that I'd like to work on if I'm elected.
Thank you. Excuse me, the following questions will be questions that every candidate will get a chance to answer. And the first question is, in a weekend editorial that appeared in the Beloit Daily News dated February 2 through 4, 2018, titled, "Let's Do Right by These Kids, Community Should Get Behind Innovative Effort to Reach Youngest Learners." The editorial stated, and I quote, "We want to leave readers with this thought. Do not look away and conclude the schools have got this, unquote. As a member of the City Council, what innovative community programming would you embrace and support to reach our youth?" And the question goes to Ms. Jacobson first.
Well, I did read that editorial, and I think some of it was based on performance of students, and I think part of that was based on some, the crux of it is that childhood trauma can affect children later in life, and so I think one of the things that we can do is continue to have safe neighborhoods so that as they're growing up and they're I played in the street. I don't know what they do now. Maybe they play video games or something. But when they are enjoying their time with their neighbors, that they are safe neighborhoods, and that's something I know the police department has done well, and we can continue that initiative. I suppose we can also engage them more, in government as they get older, so that they, at least with us and with the local employees, so that they know. What it is that we do. I think we can also be more innovative so that they have access to other things that would keep them occupied. If that is perhaps an issue, I don't have children, but I will just assume, sorry if I'm judging your children, it seems like they need to be more occupied. And also, I think easy ways that the city can do that is through our parks department, through the library. A lot of these programs can be free. I know that we already have some food programs through the schools that then carry on through the YMCA on the weekends, but I think it's a matter of keeping them focused and having opportunities for them so they are not getting into trouble, and hopefully if they are having trauma, that we can get them the resources they need to help them deal with those issues so that they can deal with them sooner rather than later.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Parocho.
Yeah, I remember reading that editorial, and it's true, you can't do it all through the schools, and we have to do it as a community, and we're all responsible to see that we have a quality community. As Beth alluded to, we have a Parks Department that's got a huge leisure services program, and we've got a great library. So we've got a lot of tools in place to accomplish it. Specific programs, we have the Resurgent Downtown, and an organization that is constantly creating events and trying to generate interest that across the board, and especially to the youth. We have to make sure that they understand there's alternatives to other things that we do, and our new community policing initiatives should be great for that. The bicycle program that they'll introduce this year will be great. As a bike rider, I get out, and I am not a funny little old man with candy. I have a candy on my bike so that the kids and I have something to talk about while we're doing, talking about my camera that's around my neck and stuff. And getting out and engaging the kids and encouraging them. It can be one person, it can be one group, it can make a difference in one life. And those kids need the best chance to see the goodness in everybody. And as a somebody who's lived on the near west side all my life, these are the kind of differences we can make as individuals, and we have to. As a group, as a city, I think we're doing a fine job, and we can always do more. The outreach, the communication has got to be there, and I think we're moving in the right way on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Levy, same question.
Thank you. First of all, I would say we need to believe in our students. and encourage them instead of criticizing. When you pick up the paper, a lot of times, you're always seeing in the paper about what they're not doing right in the school district. But I think if we start encouraging them and believing in our students, that will go a long way as well. But then take it to the experts. And when I say experts, I'm talking about the teachers, the principals, and the students themselves. The students at Black Hawk Tech, the students at Beloit College. If you want to know what a student wants, what better way to find out but ask them directly. I'm approaching 60, I'm 55, so my idea of what I think students want may not be the same. I have kids that's out of the house, and I have a lot of relatives that I think if I say, let's do this is fun, we may not be on the same level. So I think if you go right to the students and ask them, what do you want? But not only ask them what they want, but we got to be able to try to implement what they suggest, because you don't want to ask them and then not pay attention to them as well. And as a city, we could partner with the school district, with Beloit College, with Black Hawk Tech. But what we're going to do is we have to come up with a way to invest in our kids. Because I often say, if we don't invest in them now, as they get down the road and they end up in the prison system, we look back and wonder what happened, what didn't we do? So I think what we need to do as a city is figure out ways to invest in our kids while they're young, partner with the school district. There's a lot of activities that's going on in the city, and we need to look at ways that we as a city can help fund those and kind of work with that as well. But also step outside the box. Look and see what other cities are doing and kind of mimic that as well. We don't have to necessarily reinvent the wheel, but look what other cities are doing as well. But the biggest piece is we got to walk the talk. If we're going to say we care about our students, we care about our kids, then I think it's time for us to step up and prove it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, same question?
I think we're going to have to look at bringing our youth up in stages. First of all, you want to maintain a safe community for all the citizens and the youth. So yes, they can get out and enjoy themselves outdoors and stuff and enjoy the parks and things like that. As council people, we're going to have to get out into the community and the neighborhoods and engage with our citizens, the parents of kids, and get them to understand that they're going to have to start investing in each other as a neighborhood, getting to know each other as neighbors. And the old saying of it takes the village to raise a child, we're going to have to go back to that frame of mind. We're going to have to work with local programs to steer the kids to as they grow up. We're going to have to make sure they have opportunities in the future as they grow up, so we don't lose any of them or anything like that. We're also going to have to engage with the businesses and have the businesses involved in community events. When you have certain community events around here in different neighborhoods, we're going to need the businesses to also engage in that, so that they see then that there is opportunity still within this community as they grow older. I think having more community outings within the different neighborhoods, just like you do with the National Night Out. I think we have 2 additional night outs to help build that community and neighborhood, to get them to understand that they have to invest in each other, that the businesses have to invest in the communities. We all have to invest in each other to make sure that these students understand that there is opportunity out there and people care.
Thank you. Next question. Increasing employment is crucial to the economic survival of any city. In Beloit, we need to improve housing and decrease poverty by attracting a diverse workforce. Given these parameters, what would you need to have in the evaluation instrument for the city manager? Mr. Martin?
I think to establish a qualified workforce in the future, I think we're going to have to start somewhere at the high school level. And I think that's where you're going to have the city, school district, the businesses and the neighborhoods are going to all have to be involved in this. I think if we can get a program or the programs that are in place to work together to benefit starting at the high school level, to start building our qualified workforce, starting with sophomore, juniors, and seniors, to to get them into a type of program. I do understand that the school district does have a small program, but to expand on that to where kids can get credit for these classes. So we can get the businesses within the community to do an apprenticeship or an internship type program for these students to where they can gain some qualified work experience as they progress through school. And then once they graduate, okay, they have an opportunity to possibly get jobs within this community. So I think it's going to take an all-in effort. We're all going to have to be in this together to do that. So I think that's one program that you can do. Again, like I say, by getting these businesses involved and the school district all together.
Mr. Martin, excuse me, let me repeat the question. I think possibly may have misunderstood. What I would like to hear is, given these parameters that I outlined, what would you need to have in the evaluation instrument for the city manager?
What would I need to have for the?
What would the evaluation system look like for the city manager to encompass the different things that I mentioned before?
For a qualified work environment and diversity.
Housing and decreasing poverty by
Okay.
attracting.
I think with the housing, you're going to need to basically promote the programs that the city has. And as far as the qualified workforce, just what I explained earlier,
Okay.
we're going to have to work together with the other units within the city. And the last one was?
By attracting a diverse workforce.
And I think that's where we can build our diverse workforce from within our school system.
Thank you. Excuse me, let me repeat the question, and this question will go next to Mr. Levy. Increasing employment is crucial to the economic survival of any city. In Beloit, we need to improve housing and decrease poverty by attracting a diverse workforce. Given these parameters, what will you need to have in the evaluation instrument for the city manager?
Well, four things that I can think of. First of all, a couple of directives in there where we make it part of the plan itself for saying, as a council, here's what we expect. We want you to go out, we want you to recruit, we want you to do everything that's possible to make sure that we have a diverse workforce, not only a diverse workforce, but a qualified diverse workforce that represents our community. That becomes a directive in the evaluation piece where you can actually rate that individual at the end of the year to say, did we do it or did we not? But you don't limit it to with the city manager. You also have him or her, whoever's in place, make it part of the department head's evaluation tool as well. Because we can always hold accountable for the city manager, but if it's not trickling down to the other departments, we're going to be in the same boat that we are now. So you make the expectation, the whole organization wide. And then also you put in there about job skills. We need to make sure that we have a job-ready workforce when new jobs come. You put all that in the evaluation piece and make sure that it's part of everyone who works for the city, all the department heads in their evaluation piece, so everyone is working towards the same common goal. When you bring people into the city, if they start making money, that's going to improve our housing stock because people are going to be looking for places to live, looking for neighborhoods. Our neighborhood housing programs continue on the east and west side to build up property, and so all that's going to do is enable people to come in and purchase those homes. But it starts at the top with the council expecting it and holding the city manager accountable, and then making sure that who's ever in that seat are holding the department heads accountable to meet these goals that we set forth.
Thank you. Mr. Preischel.
Yes, you're quite right. Employment's very important, but it's not just employment. It's making people come for their jobs, but they should stay to live. And we can measure that. We have the NARSA neighborhoods on east and west sides now. That should give us some data. Hopefully we'll see some upswing in development and interest in those areas. So that would be at the very low end, trying to raise the value of those neighborhoods and interest new people in living in them, new families. We have a number of measures that we can apply, and we actually have added that NARSA measurement to this year's evaluation of the city manager for next year's consideration. And, you know, we have the census data, the track data. We also have housing starts. Housing valuations among our apartments, and we're actually going to see a pretty good year this year on that as far as what should be coming down the pipeline. But it isn't enough that we just have people coming here for jobs. We need people coming here to live. And to do that, we have effective, the last report on the lowering crime rates and case solutions and case resolutions and stuff like that. I mean, that's all going to help. It's great that our downtown attracts people's interest. Now that we bring that interest in, we need to, when those are all measurable, we can measure that, but how many people stay, and that's how we need to add that. We have added some of this requirement to the next year's goals for the city manager. So these are all things that can be measured through the normal statistics that we have, you know, housing starts and rental rates and, you know, residency and stuff. So, but we haven't done it. This city has not changed in 70 years. Was that the statistic that we got this year? 70 years, we've barely changed as far as population goes and valuation. It's been a really long time, unusually long time. So hopefully this is all going to be very good. And if we start measuring this, and it'll be, actually should look really good in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson, same question.
Sure, that's a complex question. A couple things that I think that we need before we can really put metrics up against the city manager is that we need to be, and by we I mean the city staff, economic development, that we're aware of the business's needs as far as the staffing and the skills. As far as metrics, we can track the city manager's participation in economic development. I know there's business education partnership events through the chamber, and we can get quarterly updates on those to see how they're going. Some things we don't control, so some things, metrics would be her being a participant in programs that we don't necessarily manage, which is in fact currently happening. As far as housing goes, for us to really want people to live here and even for our citizens to become homeowners, which can decrease poverty, I think it's a continued NARSA initiatives that we work with community development all the time. Also, it is making sure that those programs exist and continue. That includes loans for home rehabilitation and down payment assistance, and that's also partnering with neighborhood housing services, which we currently do. Another thing that we would have to look at are the skills that the businesses need for workforce development. I know that the city manager certainly participates in some of these business partnerships between the chamber and local businesses and industries. As far as metrics, we don't manage the workforce development programs, but we can make sure that it's a priority. We can get updates. We can attend ourselves. There are things that we can direct the city manager to do. Unfortunately, in this case, we can't necessarily be responsible for creating the jobs. We can just make it a priority that we're constantly aware of and that we keep on our agenda for our citizens to make sure that those partnerships are maintaining and also supporting the organizations that do participate in those programs and do create jobs.
Thank you. Our next question. How practical or valuable are recommendations of the city advisory committees? Give one recommendation to the city manager that would encourage volunteers to serve on an advisory committee. Ms. Jacobson?
Did you say how practical and?
How practical or valuable are recommendations of the city advisory committees? Give one recommendation to the city manager that would encourage volunteers to serve on an advisory committee.
Well, the advisory committees are very practical because they address issues that we then vote on, and it gives a voice to a wider number of citizens than just the 7 of us. I think it's, at least growing up, that's a way that you can, I saw my parents do it, and it's a way to be involved without being committed to as many meetings as we are lucky to attend. Like I said, I think that's the best way to engage in government is to be involved and to participate, whether it's whether it's the Plan Commission or appointment review. I mean, that's a way to really make a difference with that. And my recommendation for the city manager would be to continue that. And one way to encourage, we encourage people every other Monday night, outside of us asking more people. I'm not sure what else we could do other than pay people or give them candy or something. But
Popcorn.
yeah, there you go, popcorn. I just think that you have to want to be involved, and I think that just reminding people that you have a voice, and it's important to be involved, because this is really the closest level of government that you can interact with and make a difference. So some of that I would put on the city manager, and some of that I would put on us as community leaders.
Thank you. Mr. Freischel.
Well, having served on a number of committees over the years, and both ad hoc and permanent established committees, and serving on 4 of them, I believe, at this time on the city council, which is an unusually large number. It's interesting to see the expertise that the committees bring to their deliberations and things. For instance, on the Parks Commission, which I've been participating with for almost 8 years. We have somebody from the hockey group, but we have somebody that's a biologist at the college, retired now. Teresa Oldenburg was on it for a time. Jeff Johnson, who helped develop, music at Harry, or dancing at Harry's. So people that from a diverse background of specialties, of interests, bring their voices to the table in these groups, and that's really helps in having an informed opinion, having some great ideas, changing things up sometimes from what staff might suggest or what we might think is just, well, we're good with that. Maybe, because they're there at that level to get it done now before it gets to this level, and that's really important. And it's important that they get that as members of committees, they get used to, how the city operates and how staff operates, and those are all great things. That's a great way to start. And my encouragement to anybody would be, it's not a big commitment, but it is a commitment, and you do bring something to the table. So, don't be afraid to talk. The guy who got me interested in all this stuff back in 1987 said to me one day, says, Mark, you got to do more than vote. And so the next thing I knew, I was on a city committee. And that was 30 years ago or more. And that's been like that ever since. And that's what you have to do. You have to do more than vote. If you really want to make a difference, you got to go out there and do more than vote, whether it's engaging people in the community, in different organization and boards, or in the city, on the committees and stuff like that we do here. So, as far as examples, boy, there's not a committee in this town that doesn't benefit from an example of somebody bringing an expertise that would not be there otherwise.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
First of all, if anyone out there would like to volunteer to be on the city committees, feel free to call the city clerk's office. As Beth said, we say that every council meeting. It's on Facebook. There is a need. We have a lot of people that are not volunteering for these committees. But to answer the question, they are practical and they are valuable. We get a lot of varied opinions from people outside of the way we think. So I think the more people you bring to the table, you can get a lot more done. But I say that in caution at the same time, that when they come to us, when decisions come to us, recommendations from these committees, sometimes the council may not support those decisions. That does not mean that your decision was invaluable. It just means that after we talked about it a little bit further, we had a difference of opinion. And I think that's what makes the committees great, because you have an opinion. Everyone has their own opinion. We get to the common issues at hand. Bringing new ideas to the table. What recommendations would I have for the city manager is, as we have new businesses come to town, why not make it part of their orientation packet, that once they get here, you have all their employees. They're bringing 150 employees to the city. It's part of the orientation package, just introduce to them the city council, the agendas, talk about the volunteerism that we need, the committees that's open for them to serve on. If we're looking for people to buy into the city, that's a great way for them to do it. That's a great way for them to sit at the table and find out what we do. So make it part of a business plan when we sell new business. Hey, why don't you talk about the city while you're down there? What about going to the students at the high school level, talking to them? We keep hearing we want to get students involved. This is a way to get them involved, to get them started and at the level of volunteering and putting their input forward. Years ago, I was with the late, great Gary Seidel to study committees on committees. There were so many committees in the city. We got down, we sat down, and we combined a lot of the committees that we have today to make it better for better for the citizens to volunteer. So that's another way that we're changing. But please, anyone who wants to get involved, 364-6600. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
I agree that the committees that were talked about, they are practical and valuable to the city. Again, if you want to help make your city a better city and be involved in the governing of your city, these are some of the committees that you need to be involved in, because sometimes it's easy to sit around and voice your opinion or complain about certain things, but this is the best way to get in to be involved. This is one way to learn about your city and the government, to voice your opinion and share any ideas that you have to help improve the city and make it a better community. So that would be some of the recommendations that I would give to the city manager and to the council as a whole, is to get out and encourage citizens within the community to be involved rather than just voting.
Thank you. We will now go to the part of the program where I'm going to ask individual questions of our candidates. And the first person that I'm going to pick on is Mr. Proischel. Briefly describe the role of the council in the development and oversight of the city budget, and considering ongoing budget challenges year after year, what do you think can be done to minimize budget cuts to vital services in our community?
Well, the council's key in reviewing the priorities of the budget and determining where we need to put our emphasis. And that's well ahead of the actual drafting of the budget. That begins in June. And we don't find the final budget until November. And through the workshops and strategic goal setting and stuff like that. But as far as managing those challenging times, that's all part of prioritizing things. Everything is important. If you look at the entire scope of the city operations, there's nothing that's not important. It's just as important for you to have the trees managed in our parks as it is to have our snow plowed, as it is to have our garbage removed, as it is to have our sewers work. It's all important, and it's just as important to have the police and the fire fully staffed, ready to respond, and to do so in a timely manner and without a whole lot of overtime. But we've got to. The best thing we can do is to strategize ways to grow our tax base, and that comes down again to having more people living here, more homes, paying more taxes. And I don't put that on the businesses, because we are home deficient, and we have been for a very, very long time. We need to improve that, and we're working on that. And NARSA is part of that problem, part of solving that problem, but it's more, we've got to build the homes. We've got to have the space, and we've got to get the people to come and stay, and we're doing that. Downtown Beloit's resurgent. The interest is there. Now we've just got to supply the marketplace with the goods that they're looking for to live here. And the people that are here, that have jobs here, we've got to make sure that they're able to get to those jobs, whether through transit or other means. We've got to have a viable transportation system. And so those are all part of developing that budget. The problem with looking at the budget from one or two little narrow scopes is that everything, you have to remember, everything is important to somebody. And it's a tough job, and it's one that takes a little getting used to. And I'm hoping to keep doing it for another 2 years. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question, Ms. Jacobson. You have cited Beloit's 3.7% unemployment rate, noting workforce development partnerships needed to continue in 2018. Through your leadership, what workforce development partnerships have been formulated with the school district of Beloit, South Beloit, and Rock County during your tenure on the City Council? And if re-elected, what additional public-private partnerships would you encourage the council to pursue?
That's a tough question a little bit, just because my tenure's been brief. But I do know that there are some business education partnerships organizations with Beloit and South Beloit. I think in Beloit, it's the training, it's the I apologize for the terminology, the tech program. They've increased the different skills that are being offered as trades. I'm not familiar with South Beloit. I'm sure the chamber is probably actively involved in the South Beloit School District. I don't know that one offhand. But I do know that it's an active organization. I think it's involved with the chamber, the GBEDC, the city of Beloit. Gosh, I think when I did mock interviews, even some Beloit College people are active in that. So I haven't been updated on that since I've worked at the city. So I apologize. But I think the second part was if I'm reelected, apparently I'll be doing some education on that. But I think the concept in itself is pretty easy. It's just a matter of bringing different skills to younger people so that they can make a quality living without going to a four-year school, which I've been advocating for a very long time. And even if they do continue on to a four-year school, they can still, in the meantime, have a career and provide for a family if necessary. And I think it's also important for non-traditional students or people that maybe have lost a job through whatever their career track is to have the opportunity to learn a new field that can, take less time than perhaps a four-year college degree to get them back on their feet and provide, a living wage that they can support a family on so that we can have a stronger economy for our citizens.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, as a potential city council member, what recommendations would you bring forward to the council for action to address the homeless situation in Beloit?
I guess one of the recommendations that could be brought forth is to start working more in partnerships, I guess, with the already charitable organizations here to do more with the homeless, maybe to look at ways to possibly work with housing as part of a city assisting with that, and maybe setting up some type of housing for like during the winter for the homeless citizens and stuff like that. Again, working with the churches, getting them more involved in helping out with the homeless, trying to get some type of education, getting them the type of maybe medical care that they may need, and whatever psychological issues they may have, touching on those issues to try to help them maybe recover from whatever situation that has them being homeless. I just think it's one of those things of where you have to look at them as humans other than just they're there and trying to figure out a way to hide them or get rid of them, but to find out what their needs are and to try to assist them back into being productive citizens. So that would be maybe some of the recommendations that I would give to the city manager.
Thank you. Mr. Levy, if reelected, what specific recommendation would you bring forward to enhance communication between the community and the council, and what would you recommend to council members to improve their community outreach efforts?
First of all, to council members, years ago when I first got on, we have a couple of counselors in here this evening. What we took it upon ourselves to do is walk the neighborhoods. We chose a different neighborhood every week, And what we did is spend 2 hours just walking around the neighborhood, talking to the residents, getting to know what they would like to see for their neighborhoods, concerns that they've had. And the amazing thing about that is when you think people are not watching those council meetings, when you get out there and walk, there's a lot of people that say, we saw you on TV. So as for councilors, I would challenge them to go out to the neighborhoods. It's great to go to the events that we get invited to, and we get invited to a lot. But I think it's more beneficial to go and meet people where they are. Because everyone doesn't go to the event. So if you get out there, you talk to them in the neighborhoods, if you talk to them at churches, in the grocery stores, wherever they are, and they have a concern and they want to talk to you, that's how you improve your communication. We also hired a strategic communications person now, and we've seen increase in our Facebook pages. If you're on Facebook, you'll see a lot of announcements from Pam about city council meetings and what's going on at City Hall. We're seeing an increase in the fire department's communication, police department's communication, all via the social network. Also with the Daily News, working with that, but we got to take it outside of that. And as one of the ideas that I'm going to, like what Mr. Martin said, town hall meetings. I mean, every once in a while we would have those to let the public know what's going on, because I think the more information you give the public, the more they're going to be receptive to ideas that you may have later coming up down the road. So I think getting out and meeting the public face to face. And as far as staff go, right now, I know community development, whenever they're doing housing rehabs, they're out there meeting the public and with the neighbors, inviting them to come in and see what's going on in the neighborhood. So I think we have to leave this building and go out to where the public is, and that's how we get to improve their communications.
Thank you, Mr. Levy. And I did make a mistake, and I think Mr. Portia is going to catch me on this one because he's going to answer, you would like to answer the question?
Oh, no, I just wanted to ask Kevin, I want to tell Kevin that I know a place where you can get a good bike, and I'd be happy to show him how to use it. I know. I want to expand his horizons.
I'll be happy to go and show somebody else where to get the bike and follow you along in my car.
I just want to, because I do want to take the opportunity to say, everybody knows I ride my bike and I take pictures and that's what I do.
Was walking the
Thank you,
street.
Mr.
And that's,
Portia.
and let me tell you, Beloit is better by bike, Kevin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
But you meet more
I thought you
people
were gonna
face to
correct
face
me.
when you're walking. Mr. Berkeley, if I may, I wanted to follow up, rebut to some of the housing stuff.
Hold on just a moment, and that was my mistake, because I should have asked after each question of the individual if there was any other person, any other candidate wishing to respond to their question. And so,
Yeah.
Mr. Levy, you will get the opportunity.
Community education partnership.
Basically, no, I
get
said
30
housing
seconds.
piece.
I'm
The
not
housing
touching
piece
your
is something that
question.
the housing piece
30
is something that
seconds.
I've kind of already started working on with Julie Christensen. Basically, one of the things that I also said on the CDA, whenever funds are available, one of the questions that I'm posing to Julie all the time is, what are we going to do for our homeless population? We got to make sure that we're taking care of the homeless population, doing all that we can, because we can't bring businesses here and say we have a great city and then we have a large homeless population. So that question is always on the table with Julie from me pretty much on a weekly basis. So.
Thank you. Any other candidate wishing to respond to any of the individual questions that I ask?
I'll
Yes,
do the housing,
please.
or the homeless
Thank you.
question as well.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So we talked earlier about volunteering for the city of Beloit, and if you don't want to volunteer for the city of Beloit and you'd like something less, there are several organizations you could volunteer at for the homeless population issue in the state line area. There's a homeless intervention task force, there's ECHO, there's a men's shelter, Hands of Faith, and there's 1649 that all accept donations, in any form, and also you could volunteer for all of those organizations. So that's another opportunity for our residents to be involved without the commitment of being on a board.
Thank you very much. Any other candidate wishing to respond to any of the questions? Thank you.
Community Education Partnership? Yeah.
We will now move to the section, I will now begin with questions from the audience. Audience questions will be directed to the candidate whose name is randomly selected by the moderator. Candidates are reminded of the 2-minute response time and the 30-second response time if you choose to answer the same question. Please bear with me as I go through these. Thank you. And the first question will go to Mr. Preuschel. How is the juvenile portion of the city court evaluated? Is it having an impact on juvenile crimes?
I'm going to have to ask you to reread that because I didn't understand that.
How is the juvenile portion of the city court evaluated? Is it having an impact on juvenile crime?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
That's fine. Let me
Not the
then
only one.
go
Okay, good.
to another. Please comment on the recent BTC decision to close the Beloit Center on August 31st with no plan for where to put the courses and with no citizen input.
Well, as I understand it, that decision was made based on economics. They weren't getting, it was costing them too much to operate the facility, and they were going to reevaluate the location. I don't know exactly when the closing is going to take place, but they promised to continue a Beloit Center, and I can't imagine them not. There's other facilities, but the complaint was that the location was just too expensive for them to continue. So I take them at their word that they're going to continue to have a presence in Beloit, and they need a presence in Beloit. There's plenty of opportunities in other areas. There's Career Tech down at the Ironworks campus. There's the Beloit Memorial High School's got a tech career thing. There's plenty of open space in Morgan Square where I used to work, 24,000 square feet, just raring to go. Anyway, and I don't see any brick and mortar coming in there, so it'll be interesting. And then I'm concerned about filling the space that they vacate. That's up to the Hendricks Development Group, and they're pretty inventive. And so, but yeah, I'm just going to take them at their word that it was a case of, trying to get, and I'm all for them getting more bang for their educational buck, because that's my educational buck that's helping pay for them. I'd rather see that money go into classrooms and into rent for a building. So if that's going to give them more classroom time and more students, more power to them, as long as they stay here like they promised.
Thank you. Any other candidate wishing to answer that question? Seeing none, I'll go to the next question. What do you see as the city's biggest challenge, and how will you try to address it if you are elected, excuse me. And that question will go to Ms. Jacobson.
I know that the city's biggest problem or challenge is the budget. The city's hands are tied. We're tied for a couple of reasons. The state and local federal government continually sets policy and programs and standards that local governments have to honor without providing us with any funding to implement those standards. Cities in Wisconsin are challenged by expenditure restraint or shared revenue, as you guys probably have heard of, to receive payments. Our current annual budget and the general fund cannot exceed the prior year's budget more than the inflation rate. It's a formula. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but that will suffice for today. And we also must conform to generally accepted accounting principles, so we can't use unique financing, if you will, to supplement that formula for our personal sake. Also, this state has imposed tax levy limits, and so we can't increase our property tax levy, which is the total amount that we receive, and we also get the pleasure of having our equalized assessed value stay stagnant or decrease, which means your tax levels go up because your housing value has gone down. That being said, that perfect storm, if you will, is something we've been dealing with for a long time, and that makes, I sort of hate this term, but it's like we do more with less every year, and it's literally less. I mean, inflation goes up. It costs more money every year just to open our doors. If you even just take out staff alone, it costs more to put fuel in our vehicles, to heat these buildings, and we still have and want to maintain the same service levels for our citizens. And so this is something we've always struggled with. thing that we can do is continue the strong relationship we have with our local elected officials at the state. They've been as helpful as they can be, but no one has been able to change the legislature and change the way that we receive our funding. I realize that Beloit receives a big portion, but we need it to keep our doors open.
Thank you. Any other candidate wanting to answer the question?
I
Mr.
would just say,
President?
of all the things that I had to learn as I became a city councilor 2 years ago, was the budget, the restraints of the budget process were frustrating, a frustrating lesson to learn. And that's the reality that we're faced with. And the best way we can do this is to grow our tax base, and that's something we have to work on, and you'll see it happening out in the Gateway now. We have houses going up out there. We have a couple new apartments, but is it going to be enough? It's probably not going to be enough to offset the increases, and we're just going to be, treading water again. I just hope that some point this resurgence of interest in Beloit, and we've got people coming from out of town looking at us, that we're going to hit. It's kind of like when the Phoenix building hit us downtown. We'll turn a corner and things will look better.
Thank you. Any other candidate wishing to answer the question?
Sure, I would.
Thank you.
I would simply say the reputation, the negativity that's promoted. We can have all the money. We can have the best budget. We can have every house filled in the city. But until we change our reputation or our perception or our negativity, that's going to haunt us forever. People are not going to come to a community to where when they pick up the newspaper or look online, all they see is the bad things about the city. A lot of people are not going to move here. They may work here, but they're not going to live here. So we need to continue to work to change our reputation. And the great people are in Beloit. We're doing great things. That's what we should be promoting. And then do like me. If you hear someone talk bad about your city, remember you live here. Tell them to be quiet and move on to something else.
Thank you. Any other candidate wishing to answer the question?
Oh, yes. I think also if we could encourage our citizens and some of our renters to look at possibly becoming homeowners. I think that would help, encouraging them to invest in the property that they purchase. I'm sure there's probably some programs within the city that could assist with bringing renters and helping them become homeowners. I think that would also help getting those homes improved that they purchase.
Thank you. The next question. Do you believe protective services is part of the city's critical infrastructure? Please explain why or why not. That question will go to Mr. Levy.
Why did I know that question was coming to me? I just felt it.
I made a mistake. No, go ahead.
To be honest, I believe that all city services are important. When we start picking apart what's more important, what department is more important than others, we stand a risk of neglecting. And I think if we're going to look at the city as a fair organization, when it comes to budget time, looking at fair, how we're going to appropriate funds, we have to treat everybody the same. Yes, protective service is important, but in the wintertime, I'm sure our citizens would say DPW is just as important because we need clean roads. Every other week, if your trash is not picked up for months and months, that's important. So I think that's, as a counselor, that's what we need to do, is make sure that we're keeping everybody informed, equal, so when we allocate funds, we do it equally across the board.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
Yes. I mean, I think if, when you're talking about the budget, if to make the statement that everything is on the table, we kind of basically know that that is not a fair statement to make, because we know not everything is on the table come budget time. I think you have to look at your emergency services and your DPW services as basically being honest as your core departments to help maintaining any municipality. Yeah, I understand it's nice to have parks and things like that for people to get out and enjoy, but your main core departments in any municipality are your police, fire, and DPW. So, I mean, if we're going to prioritize and be serious about doing the budget, those things we need to have funded properly for the safety of the citizens and the well-being of the citizens.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the
Yeah,
question?
I have to refute that because the Parks Department's budget for parks is so small, it wouldn't add much of anything to anything if it was eliminated altogether. It's just not enough to matter, and it's important. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in Beloit will use our parks in some way, shape, or form. And many, many, many of them, maybe none of them, will ever interact with the police or fire in the course of a year. That means something to everybody that sees our parks, walks through our parks, and are here. That's just as important. It makes everything should be, like I said before, everything is important. And we should not just discard one thing to favor another. We have to weigh it all against the broader picture.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
It's point of clarification to Mr. Martin. When we say that come budget time, everything's not on the table, I strongly disagree with that. Having sat through many budget presentations, budget processes, every department is touched before it even gets to us. Once it gets to us, we have questions. It goes back to every department, and they're touched again. So I couldn't sit here and let the public think that everything is not on the table when it comes to budgeting process. Having been there, every single department is touched. Every cut that we make in the budget, every department feels that cut.
Thank you for the clarification. Yes, did you want to answer the
Yes,
question?
if I
Thank
may.
you.
Part of the reason why we say everything is on the table is because at the city, staff is a team. And it's an exercise in saying that this challenge is one that we're going to fight together. And it means that everyone is a part of the solution. It also means that the largest departments almost always carry a higher percentage of the cuts, or can, and that's because there are some departments that are 1 or 2 people or 5 people. And so, for example, economic development is 2 people. And there's only so much money you can cut out of that budget. If Andrew had to cut 10%, I mean, we're at this point at training and copy services and probably gas mileage. So everyone needs to be a part of the solution, and that's how it works at the city of Beloit.
Thank you. The next question, Mr. Martin. Would you be supportive of a community health, mental health center?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Why or why not?
Why or what?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh.
No, you answered the question. Let me go forward. And anyone else wishing to answer the question? Away from the city council meetings, how will you help promote a positive view of Beloit? And that question will go to Mr. Portiel.
Oh, geez. That's a softball question for me. That's basically been what I've been doing for most of my adult life. I've been promoting the city of Beloit. And cheerleader? Cheerleader, documentarian, editorialist. I don't know. Yeah, lots of those things. I don't know what I could do and stay married, that I'm not already doing. But really, I got involved because I cared about the city of Beloit, because we, in 1987, had a sewer project on the west side of town that was poorly done and poorly bid and poorly thought out and poorly monitored, everything. And I was going to make sure that didn't happen again, and I got together with Dave Wilcox, and they changed the way we do those projects after that. And then in 2000, I got mad because there was pictures of the Beloit Glacier in Alaska, and there were no other pictures of that of Beloit on the web. And we had this wonderful plan to reinvent ourselves, and some of you might remember that. Revisit Beloit, and the Visit Beloit logo got developed, and we wanted people internally, our citizens, to take another look at their hometown, at our town, and say that there are good things here, and we should be proud of what we have. And that was across the board, and that was initiated by Visit Beloit. So I took it upon myself to try and find a way to get pictures on the internet before it was easy to get pictures on the internet, before we had cell phones, before we had social networks. We didn't even have viral things back then. You know, we had this thing that people were talking about, web pages. We didn't have blogs yet. So, I mean, and so it's been snowballed from there. And I am constantly promoting Beloit, and I'm constantly encouraged. One of the things I got asked a lot in the last couple of years, because we would get interviewed by reporters and stuff, and they would say, especially the out-of-town reporters, what do you think of this downtown Beloit? Because that's where I work. And what do you think of this? What's going on with downtown Beloit and everything? Because we had appeared in this video and that network, and it's like, and I would just look at them and say, I've been waiting for this all of my life. And now it's here, and I'm really happy to be part of it. And if I can do more, I will do more. But I don't know what more I could do than what I've been doing, what I continue to do. And nothing's going to stop except that sign's going to make me stop. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
Sure, I will.
Thank you.
I've sat on the Visit Beloit board for 4 years, and we're constantly trying to make Beloit a positive destination, and we're training people who work in hospitality services to be more hospitable and to know more about Beloit. We make sure that staff that works in hospitality in Beloit knows events that are happening locally, and that they give them, the Beloit charm that we appreciate. I also think that I've been a cheerleader for Beloit for a long time, because when I worked in Illinois, everyone said, "Oh, you're from that place with a big chili can," and they like Carrie's Lights, and they like to stop when they're going up to Wisconsin, where everyone in Illinois goes every weekend. So we'll just continue on and support the city, and I think one of the things that my friends and I that I graduated with who are running, that we think that if we're going to live here, that we need to support it and make it a better place. So we'll continue doing that.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer?
Sure, I think what you do is continue to promote all the positive things that's going on here, but we also have to be honest with ourselves. And we talk about the downtown, we talk about the gateway, we talk about those areas as well. But one of the things that we really need to make sure we're doing is promoting a positive image for all the neighborhoods in Beloit. And if there are neighborhoods in Beloit that we are not proud to brag about, then that's when you put pressure on us and say we need to make sure that these neighborhoods are where we want them to be as well. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. My vision for Beloit is: you blindfold someone, you bring them into the city of Beloit, you drop them off anywhere in Beloit. And when you take that blindfold off, they say, what a beautiful city you have. Because that lets us know that we are truly proud of the entire city that we live in, and not just certain parts. So you promote the positive, but you improve the areas that need to be improved as well.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer?
Yes. I guess that's where I think the town hall meetings come in handy to keep the citizens informed of all the great things that are being done in the city, and to get them to understand that we're all invested in this together. So when they go out and about visiting other people, they talk with pride of the city of Beloit. So like Kevin said, the areas that need to be fixed and repaired, that's what we work on. But the rest, we're all in this together, and we all need to take pride in our city and speak proudly of it.
Thank you. The next question. With the loss of Elder Bierman, we have serious shopping problems with very little choice. It is alarming a city of our size should do better than this. And the question will go to Mr. Martin.
That's a good question, and you are correct. We should be doing a lot better than what we're doing as far as offering places to shop. I know we do, and it's been said many a time, shop Beloit first, but when you don't have much or many places to shop, it becomes difficult. So we need to work on attracting more places to shop, maybe trying to revitalize and find a new area for a mall. I think we could sustain a mall. But again, we need to work hard on trying to attract businesses as far as for shopping and spending our money here within our community.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? Mr. Parashio.
As a person who spent his second career, 16 years working in retail, one of the reasons I went out there was to prove that retail could succeed in Beloit. And right now, there's a big empty store there. Retail is very challenged right now. I'm actually surprised Elder Berman lasted as long as it did in that location. But we do have turnkey-ready facilities out at Morgan Square and other places for the right kind of retail. And it's a matter of marketing it. And I talked to Andrew Yankee about that before. See if there isn't some retailer out there looking to experiment. This would be a relatively good way for a large retailer to downsize into a new location, see if it would work. But again, that's a tough sale. It's a tough sell getting anybody in brick and mortar retail to build a brick and mortar store anywhere right now. And that's just the reality of our times. And we do have some great shopping in downtown Beloit, but it's all the niche and boutique shopping, and that's actually one of the two retail environments that are succeeding right now: boutique, mom and pop type retail and restaurants, and the dollar stores. And that's because they haven't figured out how to do the dollar store stuff online yet. So I bring a lot of that to the table as far as that goes. But I'm just hoping that we can, get some interest in some kind of new type of retail here, and hopefully Andrew will pursue that, because we do have it ready, and they'll like that. So anyway.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? The next question. The Rock County Board recently passed a resolution to not have eminent domain use for private gain, but only for public works projects. Do you have an opinion on this subject? And the question will go to Ms. Jacobson.
You said it was only for public.
The question, the Rock County Board recently passed a resolution to not have eminent domain used for private gain, but only for public works projects. Do you have an opinion on
Sure.
this subject?
Sure, that seems, I don't know the history on how that came about, or if there was a specific instance, but that seems fair. Eminent domain should be used sparingly. It's, when you buy land, you expect that you're going to keep it. That being said, I know that I can see that it's been used in the past to, at least in Beloit, and it's been successful, but it's a tough sell, and it can put people in predicaments. I think that they own a lot of land, and so they must have researched it. I do see, there's some question about highest and best use. I'm hoping that they don't avoid it by condemning places and, kind of work around the eminent domain. But in any case, it seems like off the cuff without knowing more, it seems like a solid policy.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question? The next question, how do you feel about Beloit 2020's plan to buy up the properties between Maple and Liberty Avenues? Some would have to be forced to sell, tear them down, and put in sports fields across from the high school. That question will go to Mr. Levy.
I knew it. Once again, I had that feeling around.
I have yours marked special.
I know. Got them highlighted. When you talk about moving people from their homes, I'm a homeowner, so it does bother me. I understand. We want sports field, but are we putting sports more important than people in their homes? It's a different story if you talk to the individuals and they offer to sell and say, you know what, this is something that we see down the road that could benefit what you're trying to do on 4th Street. I'll be happy to step up and do that. But I think, to me, I wouldn't want to be displaced out of my home for sports fields. I mean, I think there's other places that we could look at doing that without knowing all the details and all the facts. I'm not really, I will leave it at that. If the homeowner is in favor of it and they approach and say, here's something that we could do, then it's okay with me. But if we're talking about just doing it to make a way for what's coming down 4th Street with the high school, then I'm not in favor of that.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to answer the question? The next question. Give us examples of how the City Council should recognize members of city committees, commissions, and boards. And the question will go to
Me.
Lucky. Mr. Freuchel.
Well, maybe we should require photo ID, just so I can recognize them. I don't know. No, recognize their achievements, or I'm not sure what the question involves, but I guess we could. Well, right now we publish a master list, and it's noted on the website and everything. The different positions. I don't know. Should we have a picnic? I'm not quite sure what the question involves again. You did this to me last time.
I'm only asking the question as it is printed on the card.
I know. And as far as I'm concerned, they should be recognized and they should be acknowledged. And actually, as far as council meetings go, it would be nice especially if we have something that we know is somewhat, like last week we had a 2-2 tie vote, from the it was a plan commission, and we relied on Sherry to give us an update on what happened at the meeting, but maybe the chairman should have showed up at the meeting and we could have asked him, or something. So something like that. I actually rarely ever see that happen. I think I did it once when I was on the Parks Commission, maybe twice. So maybe sometimes that would be nice to have that happen. We don't request it, we don't require it, but I suppose as a committee member, and if there's something that's important to the committee, they probably, just like anything, should show up and be ready to make a case in case we don't understand the importance of it, and in case there's some controversy. Because the committee is the first layer. We're just moving on and from based on what we know and what we're told in our notes and what our representatives tell us from the meeting. So anyway, I can't think of how else to answer that.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
Currently, we provide committee members when they leave with a letter thanking them for their service, and they have signed by the president of the council. So we do thank them. Also, I like the idea, we do it right now with new hires for the city, so there would be nothing wrong with saying when we have new volunteers that's serving on these committees, if they're new to the committee, bring them and introduce them to city council as well. If we're talking about getting people involved, that's another way to do it. And I like Mark's idea of saying, once a year, at the end of the year, perhaps have a luncheon for all the people that serve on all the committees. I mean, that's not going to break the bank, but it shows that we do appreciate what they do.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
I totally agree that we could do better at thanking the people that are on committees, and maybe that's why we're not getting as many volunteers as we want, so we'll have to up the ante. And so I know there's been a lot of people who have served for a long time, including my mom for over 15 years, who's here tonight. Thanks, Mom. The City of Beloit thanks you. I'll give you a certificate. But I think that's a really great question, and we should probably address that. And if we get reelected, then we can address it.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to answer the question?
I'll be addressing it before we get elected. I already wrote it down, so we'll.
Pulling rank on us.
Anyone else wishing to answer the question? We now come to the part of the forum where each candidate will now have the opportunity to give closing remarks. Closing remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. And I will begin with Mr. Martin.
First of all, I'd like to thank League of Women Voters, NAACP, and the Chamber of Commerce, again, for extending me this invitation. I'd like to thank all of those citizens who showed up and those who are watching. If elected, I plan on doing the best I can to represent the city of Beloit well, to try to keep us in a positive direction, to work fairly with the budget, and my hopefully soon-to-be colleagues as councilmen and women.
Thank you.
And tried my best to keep the citizens informed of how the city operates and functions so that they will be aware of the good things that we're doing and can be proud as they go out visiting other cities and stuff, so they can speak highly of Beloit and help attract more individuals to the city of Beloit.
Thank you. Mr. Levy.
Once again, I would like to thank all the organizations that put this on. I also like to thank Mr. Berkeley for presiding with the questions, and my history teacher, Mrs. Matter. It's always nice to get those emails from you. So I want to thank everyone that showed up tonight as well, had a question, and the people that's watching as well. But let's always remember that tough times don't last, but tough people do. Years ago, Beloit Corp closed. Years ago, Fairbanks closed. There was talk that we were over. Fairbanks is not really closed, but we had a decrease. But people are saying we're over. Beloit's done. What are we going to do? We're going to merge with Janesville? What are they going to call us? But the citizens of this city stood forward and said, this is our city. We're going to make the best of it, and we're going to come out of this alive. And look where we are now. People are coming here bragging about the great city, the great downtown, the gateway. We have a casino that's coming here. People are coming here bragging about the city that we fought for to save. So you need someone that's going to continue that fight, and I'm that person. I'm going to continue to push for the homeless population out there. There's a need out there. We need to do something about that. We talk about economic development. As I stated before, it's great to have the jobs coming to Beloit. But we got to do better. We got to make sure that we have a workforce ready, that when the jobs get here, our citizens can get them first. I've already started talking with people, individuals from Black Hawk Tech, and saying, how can we make this happen? Talk to the city manager and making this one of the things that we need to really focus on, that when people bring jobs here, we're ready. Our residents are ready. Invest in our future, which is our children. Figure out a way to get them involved in this city, because one of these days we're all going to be gone. They're going to be here running the city. And we want to let them know that this is their city. Continue to hiring staff, qualified staff that represents our community. So that's what we're going to be pushing for. And I'm that counselor that will ask the tough questions. I'm honest. If you ask me my opinion, we may not agree, but you're going to get my honest answer. And I think that's what you deserve in a city council person. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parochial.
Thanks, everybody, for coming, and thanks for letting me be your city councilor for the last 2 years. And I'd like to be able to take that experience and move on for another 2 years. It's been a wonderful opportunity to learn more about the city. We've got some great things going. We need to keep it going. Working with Kevin, now Beth, I think we've got a good council in place, and we understand our priorities. We have great communications with each other. I would really welcome the opportunity to move on and get it and continue another 2 years. I like to respond to people's one-on-one, and I do that frequently, and I look forward to doing it, continuing to do it. I also look forward to keeping an eye on and improving the entire city, all the neighborhoods. I spent half my childhood on the east side, on Keeler. I spent the other half on the west side, on Oak Street. I live on the west side, and I think the west side needs some attention. I'd like to be there to make sure it gets that good attention. And as we move forward, I think we're at a cusp, and I said this last year, where if things go right, we will turn a corner, like we did with the downtown development when the Phoenix building got there. All of a sudden, something happened when that building got done. We sat there for how many years with the old Wagner building, and now it got done. Hopefully, with the possible casino development and other things coming in, we can turn another corner. And I want to be there to help make that happen. And I look forward to it. And it's been a humbling experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobson.
I also want to thank the league and the NAACP and the chamber for having this tonight. I think that you either ride a wave or you make a wave. And one of the things that I love best about Beloit is that we don't compare ourselves to our neighbors. When we think about policy, we don't see what our neighbors are doing before we move forward with something. We set the bar. And I also love that Beloiters have a can-do attitude, and that we have a history of saying, you know, here's a problem and we can solve it. And we set big goals, and we've set big goals in the past and we've achieved them. And I think that we only compete with our own expectations. And so I love that our traditions and our events are unique to us, and that I like that people like to come to the street dance from other cities, and I like that our farmers market, people come from, this Madison to come to our farmers market. I think that that's what makes us great. And my strength as a counselor, because I'd like to see us continue to make changes and not just maintain the status quo, is my government knowledge and experience. Some of you may know that I've studied, I have a master's degree in public administration, and I did some math, and I'm really cool. And in my lifetime, I've attended more than 300 city council meetings, not including all the city council meetings my parents forced me to watch growing up. So, so there wasn't a learning curve when I joined in 2017, and I thank my fellow councilors for having me join, and I hope that the citizens would also extend their same faith in me that the councilors had. I know local government because I'm a nerd, and I know Beloit because I worked here for over 4 years, and I want Beloit to continue to make waves, and I think we need strong city council members who understand their role and their responsibilities and even their boundaries sometimes. Some of the questions tonight are hard because they're questions that we can't solve ourselves, and so like Kevin said, you know, and even Mark and I'm sure Paulie do the same thing, is that, you know, you have to ask tough questions, and I'm willing to do that, and I'm here tonight to ask for you to vote for me to maintain my seat.
Thank you. I would like to thank each candidate for their participation in tonight's forum. Thanks to the League of Women Voters of Beloit, the NAACP Beloit chapter, and the Greater Beloit Area Chamber of Commerce for providing this opportunity, and thank you, members of the audience, for your attendance and participation. That concludes. Thank you very much. Good night.
Business education.